So I recommend finishing your texturing of the cat and setting up lights. So I'm in rendered view. I've already added 3 lights. I've textured a little bit for the diffuse texture. And so if we look at my cat, I have my cat material, and then I have my cat diffuse texture. Oh, I'm running out of real estate. Here we go. There. All right. So this, we've been calling it sort of the color texture or the texture map or the bitmap, but technically this is a diffuse texture, meaning that it's affecting the color of the object. And you'll notice that it's in this diffuse category. This also has to do with intensity, alpha, which we'll get into in a later video. So for now, whenever we refer to the diffuse texture, that's what this is. It's just whatever the painting is, or the digital drawing, or the photography. So in this video, we're going to make a specular map. So remember, earlier we were talking about how, generally speaking, your object has one material and multiple textures based off of that unwrapping. So what we're going to do now is use a specular map to make the eyes and the nose shiny and the rest of the cat matte. So to do this, we actually need to adjust the material first. So I just left it at the default material settings. I'm going to go ahead and pull up the intensity of that so it's a little brighter. And what we're going to do is pull the specularity all the way down and the hardness all the way down. A lot of times, if you want to affect a particular property with a texture map, you need to basically turn off that property, or not turn it off, but have everything pulled down to 0. So if I wanted to make something transparent, for instance, I would turn transparency on, make it completely transparent, and then I'd use a texture to bring that back. So in this case, though, we're just going to focus on specularity, which is the shininess. So I'm going to go back here, and I'm going to go into material mode for just a minute and tab into here. And here's my texture right now. So that's my unwrapping. It's not really great, but it's, it's what I did really fast. Hopefully your unwrapping looks a lot better than this. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and add a new image. So I'm going to go and click on the plus sign. And it's important to name your textures so that they make sense with what they are. So this is going to be cat specular. In this case, I'm going to turn alpha on. It should default to being checked. And then I'll go to the color, and I'm going to pull the alpha all the way down. So it's going to look like a checker pattern. This is really important because specularity works with alpha channels. It doesn't matter what color you use. It matters, it's looking to see what's opaque and what's transparent and what's sort of in between. So make sure alpha is checked and that the color is pulled all the way to 0. And then say OK. And you should see this, so basically a gray map. Now I'm going to go ahead and save this, save as image. And it'll be called cat specular. And then I'm going to go ahead and add a new texture map. And this I will call cat specular. Then I'll scroll down. I'll open up that specular map, even though I don't have anything on there yet. I'll make sure that the mapping is set to UV map. Make sure that you did that for your other one as well. And for right now, I'm going to leave, or actually I'll uncheck color, and I'll set this guy back to object mode and back to rendered just so we can see it. And I'm going to turn specularity on to intensity and probably also hardness too. So you shouldn't see any change in here. But first what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back and put color back on. And in here, I'm going to go to texture paint. So that should pull this back up. Now, when you go back to texture paint, when you go to do your specular map, you got to make sure these 3 line up again. So we're over here, we're in specular paint. Let me get my brush. I'm going to set my brush to a different color. And I'll set my strength all the way, but I'll make my radius a little bit smaller. And in here, I need to change this back to the cat specular. So I need to make sure that I'm drawing on the correct one. And then I'll double check that I have cat specular drawn in here. Okay, to do this, just to make sure we're painting on the right texture map, I have the diffuse texture turned off for now, and I have it checked right here, so I unchecked it. And then over here in texture paint, normally we're in the paint brush mode, so I have it set to brush. I'm going to have it set to mix. I've set the color to green. And then under slots, It's setting to texture painting the material. So I've gone ahead and unchecked Cat Diffuse here as well, just to make sure. And then I have Cat Specular checked here. If you have problems painting directly on here and having it go into the right texture map, you can always just do it in Photoshop. Sometimes that's a little bit easier. But so now, go to the rendered version. There's those eyes. And you'll notice almost as soon as I'm drawing, that it's making them shiny. Now, obviously, I'd want to spend more time on this and make them look really, really good. But basically, what this is doing is it's making any area where there's paint shiny and any area where there's not an image just the same matte. So I'm going to go ahead and save this image. And I'll go ahead and turn this guy back on so I can see the difference. I'll make sure I have Cat Specular selected when I go down. And now I'm going to go ahead and uncheck color. So all I see is that shininess. So as I rotate around this, you can see everything is matte except for where the eyes and the nose are. And if I looked at my Cat Specular map in the pink file, I would see that it's entirely empty except for those 3 green dots where I've painted it. So that's how you make a specular map. Again, the really important thing is to have it with its own texture slot on the same material. Make sure you name everything appropriately. It's going to have intensity and hardness checked in the influence area. And when you're texture painting, just go to the slots and make sure that you have the right layer selected so that you're texture painting on the correct one.